going to test how much sanding I can do in an hour. The time is currently 19:11. Here, there's still a lot of brush strokes. There's still a lot of brush strokes in this algae thing growing on it. Going to try another hour of sanding today, but this time with the orbital sander. On the original paint job, well, this isn't the original, this is actually the third paint job. It was brushed on polyurethane, good glue, but brushed on, all the brush strokes are still there, and then 20 years sitting on the ground, this algae is growing in the brush strokes, and it's really difficult to clean off because you need to get in between the brush strokes. Since I needed to repaint the ends, I basically either had to clean this and then find exactly the same shade of white, or paint it, or paint the whole boat anyway. And it's my dream to own a boat that isn't white. I just want to be able to like gesture out to the bay of all the anchored boats and say, mine's the one that's not white. And everyone immediately knows which boat I'm talking about. So I've decided to paint it not white, but that means getting all the paint off. Okay, now I'm trying to sand the boat and get everything smooth. As you see from the area of the boat that I've replaced, there's all kinds of bits where I added fiberglass. Now I'm just looking for areas that need a little bit more material added so I can sand it smooth later. Make it smooth. I want to make it smooth. The other thing I found when I first got frustrated with orbital sanders was that actually I could do pretty much a lot of the sanding I needed to do with an angle grinder. If you hold the angle grinder flat against the surface, then you can actually do a pretty good job of sanding. Especially since an angle grinder goes way faster than an orbital sander, it really takes off a lot of material. But if you use a low grit, so if you use 120 grit sandpaper, there's two sorts. So this one here where it clips on, there's a metal thing, where it clamps on, there's a metal thing in the middle. That actually doesn't scratch the surface. It's fine, you can just hold it flat. With 120 grit sandpaper, you can get it really smooth with an angle grinder. You just have to be quite careful to hold it flat like this, so it's probably not good for the last pass, but you can get it nice and smooth. When the sandpaper is really fresh, it cuts really hard, so when you put fresh sandpaper on, start in an area that you know there's lots of material to remove, so by the time that the sandpaper is a little bit blunter, then it's much easier to use on the areas that are almost smooth. It's coming time to paint, so I need a better tent that's not leaky. More headroom for painting the top of the boat. I'm going to move the entire hull, this entire hull, a little bit towards the centre of. Now, I only replaced the Velcro on this yesterday, and except for right in the centre, all of the hooks have broken, well, most of the hooks are broken off. the solution is simple. Okay, you got to wait a bit for it to stick. Doesn't stick your finger, that should be enough. The insert beam troughs is one of the things I dislike about this design. They're so difficult to work in here that I don't think it's ever had a really good, it's probably never been smooth, and it's going to make it hard to do a good paint job in here. The 100mm angle grinder fits, but risk hitting the edges and gouging the fillet there. So I've taped on a guide and now it just fits snugly. I've got all my tools ready. The small one is doing the bottom, only just fits. Big one is for the sides. Then this is for the edges. There's probably, so far I found when there's loose paint, actually the best way to get it out is just to like scrape it out with the corner of this and then sand it with that. It doesn't come out smooth, but my paint will stick, and that's what I care about more. The flaky paint inside of these of the crossbeam troughs is so far my least favourite part of the entire project. Last time it was painted, it looks like it was just painted over, I'm not sure what this is, but it's some form of life. It might be lichen that's been scraped away, or it might have been algae. But anyway, I think it was just painted straight over it, and well, the paint didn't stick very well. Of course, it's really difficult to sand inside of here. Consequently, they didn't sand inside of there, and it's bumpy. The original build was bumpy under here, although probably paint stuck the first time. My opinion is that having the troughs looks nice, but it's a mistake in the design. It's significantly more work for the area of boat this is. Like, this is a tiny, small amount of area. If the crossbeams just went on the deck, this would have been done days ago. But getting in here and cleaning all this is really difficult. This is nearly this one hull finished. I worked on this yesterday morning and this morning. So it's going to be basically 2 whole days of work just to sand these, which if it had just been on the deck, it would have been like a few minutes with the angle grinder. Well, it's the 3rd day in a solid week of grinding, sanding and priming by myself, and well, starting to wish I hadn't tried to do a nice paint job. The amount of work, the amount of unpleasant work, I could have totally just lived with some flaky paint on the deck. Boat would be in the water by now. think that replacing all the rot, including rebuilding one of the hull, would be hard, the hard part, but actually it was easy. That bit was over pretty quick. I found this terrifyingly enormous angle grinder in the shed. I'm going to use it to cut these off at this level so I can easily sand and paint the hull. I'm going to be very careful. When I did that, angle grinder sparks straight into the camera shot. I can see lots of, definitely from this side, definitely looks like damage. Looking at the little screen on the back while filming, looks okay, looks fine. Okay, morning report. I've been priming everything. It's nearly all done. This morning I've got these 2 crossbeam troughs to grind. The tops of the rims, of the tops of the cabins. And the outside of the cabins. This part has a little bit of softwood in it. I haven't quite decided what I'm going to do about that. I'm not sure if priming it a bit as you go and then sanding some more is the ideal way to do it, but motivationally it's definitely much better than sanding the entire thing and then priming everything, because you get a sense of, well, progress. Because once you've put the primer on something, you can be like, okay, well, I'm not going to sand that again. This is the last area of the boat that needs to be primed. The motivation is returning. I'm very glad I don't have to do the troughs anymore. That was horrible. I still haven't really figured out the best way of moving paint. Sometimes sanding, sometimes scraping. Sometimes you sand and it looks like you've sanded it and now it's going to be good, and then there's an edge, and if you just run a chisel up to it, it just like rips off like huge areas like this. So I kind of like, if I see an edge, a hard edge, then I test that with the chisel. And maybe, like, that was easier to remove paint with the chisel than it would have been with the sander. And then if it seems like it's not coming up with the chisel, then I sand it a bit. Sometimes you need to sand it and then chisel it, and then of course whatever comes out underneath needs to be sanded. Eventually you can paint it. The shed still has surprises. Never noticed this guy before.